This is that 76-77 twin, and it's got a new matched pair of TAD 6L6 GC STRs. Really good current production tubes. They're well-sorted Chinese tubes at TAD brands, and they deal with the sorting, and they do a good job. And it's all biased up. It's got a new input jack on the reverb channel. The old jack wasn't shunting, so it wasn't muting when nothing was plugged in as it's supposed to. That's no big deal. But I wanted to mention something else about this amp. This amp came in because it was red plating, and that red plating really nuked the old set of 6L6s that it had before we tried those 6L6Gs. And I had initially had another 15K resistor in series with the stock 15K. It was the only way I could get tubes to work in this thing. And the reason that happened was because one of the two bias caps failed and was leaking a lot. It had a lot of resistance. It was serving as a resistor, which brought the entire bias supply down, which nuked the output tubes. So I and other techs are always like, let us change your filter caps. Let us change your bias caps. There is no tonal mojo to old crappy parts in your amp. It's like bragging that you got a 66 Mustang with the original oil. Great if you want to look at it. If you want to drive it, not such a great idea. So let me show you what I'm talking about with these two caps. So let's test those bias caps that were in there before. Here's one of the two. And if I hook this up to my ESR meter, it's got about 0.2 ohms of ESR. So that cap is in fact still good, even though it's very old. I doubt that it actually measures its rated capacitance. It's supposed to be 80 microfarad. Let me see what the other meter says about that. That's 128 microfarad, not 80, so it's climbed up. This other one, that I'll check the ESR in a moment, is the one that I'm pretty sure was the culprit for red plating tubes in this amp, and it's also supposed to be 80 microfarad. It reads 0.5 nanofarad. So that's a long way from being an 80 microfarad cap. It has almost no capacitance capability left. It's not really functioning as a capacitor, half a nanofarad. And as far as the ESR overload, it's off the charts. It means it has more equivalent series resistance than this particular meter can even measure, which means that it's almost a dead short. When it was in the amp, it was right here, and it was almost a dead short on here from the bias voltage, the raw bias voltage to ground, which meant that the entire bias voltage in the amp was really low, and those tubes red plated. So when I or some other tech says, please let me change out all electrolytics over 10 years old in your amp, we're not trying to take away your mojo. We're not trying to make an extra buck. We're trying to save your investment. And as to the idiots out there reforming old caps or claiming that the old caps have some kind of mojo, all those records done with all those great amps that we love, the Beatles, Stones, Hendrix, Cream, Zeppelin, you name it, those were all made with brand new or less than 5-year-old amps. I mean, Hendrix would get an amp and use it the next day at Winterland or use it the next day at Electric Lady. You know, it's not like those records were made with some mystical thing that had to have some old piece of cardboard in there. They were just musicians using the best tools available. And if you go back to 1966, 1967, 68, 69, and look at the amps that they were actually using, they were working the way that Leo Fender and Jim Marshall intended them to work, with new or still relatively new filter caps and bias caps. Here endeth the lesson. All right, time to finish up the 78, 79 Super Reverb. Got the new F&T caps here for the bias caps, which fit this span. They're 100 microfarad, which is larger than I'd like. Original was 80, so it's pretty close. On the twin, I did 47. 47 or 22 is a lot better for reasons I don't have time to get into. But in this case, due to the layout here, these were the best option without jerry rigging something inside. So let's put the doghouse cover back on so no one sticks their little fingers in there and dies. As mentioned before, these 70s Fenders often have the power cable pull out from the red plug. It becomes really unsafe. Let me show you the fix for that. Oh, the brutality. It'll be okay. New power cable installed, new power switch installed. For those who've asked repeatedly, the Weller SPG80L is what I use for my chassis ground connections. I've got a big chisel tip on it. I can use the corner, or I can use the full blade, or just the edge, depending on how much I need to heat up and what kind of work I'm doing. On this quick subject of commonly asked questions, some questions really are commonly asked. And in the comments on a video, I may get asked the same question 5 or 6 times, and I'll answer it once or twice, but I don't have time to answer the same question again and again. So meet me halfway, guys. If you have a question, see if it's already been asked and answered on a particular video, because while I want to answer all questions, I only have so many hours in the day. So let's see how this 7879 Super Reverb is sounding now that it's been recapped and it's biased up. The bias, without any modifications to its bias supply, is idling about 55% dissipation. My concern with this model, Super Reverb, is that the screen voltage is at 496, and it's got a cap rated for 500 volts on that screen supply. So I may need to do some more work after I consider it a bit more. But here's the normal channel. Tons of lows on these. For some people who had some unkind things to say about the quote noodling I did on that Tone Master Deluxe Reverb video, it's the same quote noodling that I do when testing any amp, because I'm not playing to make a performance, and I'm not trying to please you or any of your tender sensibilities. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm trying to take aspects of what players do and test each kind of aspect. And that can be things like just playing every note on the neck. It can be testing for overtones and wolf tones and ghost notes. It can be just double stops. It can be just popping a string. I'm not thinking about the note I'm bending to. I'm not thinking about a musical phrase. I'm just seeing how the channel reacts to a big dynamic. Similarly, I'll play really soft stuff. Just brushing with the skin of my thumb. I'll try different pick attacks. You know, if I were to play a blindingly fast E minor arpeggio, it doesn't tell me or anyone else what the amp sounds like. It just means that I've spent a lot of time playing E minor arpeggios. That's not what I do. That's not what I care about. You know, if you want to hear playing videos, there's a million other guys out there. And if I needed to do a playing video, I probably would, but I wouldn't be doing it filmed like this, and it wouldn't tell me anything about the amp that I was using. I just heard, what that little double stop thing just told me, is that the mids are really prominent on this channel. And I need to see if that pot value is drifted, because where I was expecting the sound to be right here was actually around here. So, I mean, it's possible to get a nice balanced normal sound about right here. But what is up here is getting too congested. Also had the treble down a little bit. And that's due to the pot tapers in this era versus the pre-72s. I think it's just pot tapers. Yeah, that sounds right. Reverb tank that I'm testing with has got a really long decay. That's not the amp's reverb tank, it's over in the cabinet. But the circuit itself is working without any noise, so that's all I care about at this point. And the tremolo. A little bit of crackle there, I'll clean those pots. Other than that, it's working just fine. So other than maybe cleaning some of the pots a little bit more, and my concern about the 496 volts on the screen node, I think the amp's overall pretty healthy. Time to call the owner and tell him the good news, and I'm gonna think about that screen supply voltage before I call him. And this is not one of my elaborate pro setup recordings for this bit of the video, but I wanted to document this twin reverb after the work was done as well. It sounds very nice, but I've got to button it up and get it back to the owners, so that's all for now.